And we're live. Hello, friends. Welcome to 2021. This is the first office hours of the new year with my new schedule and everything. So that's exciting. Let me just pause this really quick, share my screen. Aha, that looks familiar. Okay, so let me go over to Discord and let people know that we are live. Notify office hours. We're live for the first office hours of 2021. Live stream, Zoom call. I forgot what the Zoom call URL is. So, because I did change a couple of things. Office hours Zoom, that's sensible. Join us. Okay, great. Here we go. So for those of you who are new and have never seen office hours before, this is just once a week now. I'll give an hour of my time to answer any question that people have about my content or about anything at all. I don't always promise to answer or answer well, but I do promise that you can ask, provided that you honor the code of conduct, which I guess I will mention here. You can find it at kcdodds.com/conduct. And provided you follow that, then you're welcome to ask me anything that you like to, and I will do my best to answer. Yeah, we're doing this on Saturdays, partially because my kids have Fridays off of school. And so I can just do family stuff on Fridays and then turn Saturdays into a working day. I'm not sure I like that so much. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I don't want to work today. But I took the day off yesterday, so yeah. Anyway, so we'll see how long this holds up, but I'll keep this up to date with how I do things, like when I'm doing stuff. So that's all that I have to say before we get started. Oh, also just the typical, I answer questions in the Zoom first, and when we run out of people asking questions in Zoom, then I go to Discord. So I do not look at the live chat here. So if you're going to comment in here, I'm not going to see it. So don't bother. In fact, I just saw a comment. Now I'm curious what it was. So yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. So who has a question? The very first question of 2021.
Can't we have to post it in the Discord first?
You don't have to post it in Discord if it like Discord can be helpful if you have a link to share or something, but yeah, you don't have to post it there first.
Okay. I guess I can go first.
All right, cool.
I'm gonna try to do it with like a pseudocode, I guess.
And you can also like share your screen and all of that too if you need.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it just says like you're sharing your screen.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry. See, I'll just share here.
Cool.
So I've been trying to follow practices, putting state closest to where it needs to live instead of like, lifting it to a global store or context or whatever. So I have like a UI like save search like this. And then I have filters here. And then when you change the filters, it updates, search criteria here. Okay. I have a route. So we're using Next.js. And then there's something like a save search ID at the top in the route. Mm-hmm. The question I have here is search criteria needs save search ID. Okay. But I don't want to render search criteria. Filters need save search ID too. Search criteria needs save search ID. What happens when you route to the save search ID? They re-render at the same time because this has context of the router and this also has context of the router. Mm-hmm. What I ended up doing was, since this like flows like this, I prevented I just return null until this finishes like searching to then render this. But I didn't know there's like another way around it where basically, if I could summarize the question, save search ID, we have context here of the router. They both re-render at the same time. Is there a way to like waterfall that differently or prevent this from re-rendering until this finishes other than like returning null?
Yeah. This is actually an interesting situation because I've never investigated this, but my intuition tells me that when you have a parent that renders a child and both of those are consuming context, and that context changes, my intuition tells me that the parent is going to re-render before the child does, and I'm guessing that's what's happening. So my next thought or my next assumption I'm going to make, Drew, is that the reason that you want to prevent search criteria from re-rendering isn't because it's like rendering too fast necessarily, but because filters needs to do some async work before it can render the right search criteria. Is that right?
Exactly. So
right.
The filters are fetched from the save search ID. It gets its data and then it passes its data into search criteria. It's kind of weird, but it's the way it's not ideal, but it's the way.
No, that's fine.
So these need to be fetched first and then pass the search criteria.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So just to make sure that I understand what's happening then is you have page one or search ID one, and then the search criterion filters are both rendered, and then and filters is passing its data down to search criteria. So we have data one, and then we go to search ID two, and while filters is going to get data two, search criteria is going to re-render with search ID one and or with search ID 2 and data 1. Is that what's happening?
You have it, yeah. And then when I profiled it, it says why re-render is because hooks changed. It's like the first one is hooks change, which is the router, the use router in Next.js. And then the second re-render is filters props change.
Yep, very good. So then my basically what's happening is or like the solution that I would suggest is when filters re-renders, because the save search ID is updated, the data value that it has in state is no longer correct, and so it should not be passed to search criteria.
Okay.
And so what you need to do is when that state changes and you go to refetch or whatever, you should also clear out the data, just set it to null or whatever its undefined state is.
Okay.
And then search. So what might happen when you do this though is you're probably putting that inside of a use effect or something like that says, hey, when the ID, well, yeah, you're probably
the way I guess it's a little trying to figure out what I did here. I think I just returned null here when it's like loading but it's only the fact that this is reloaded first because it's the first thing.
Yeah, because it's the parent.
And it nulls it out. But I was hoping like not having to do that. But
well, that actually is fine unless like maybe there's a loading state that you want to show instead. But I don't actually see anything wrong with that approach. What I was suggesting is that's basically what I was suggesting.
You're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying though. You want to okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. That was basically the question. Yeah.
Cool.
Basically, when a hook changed, from in a children and a child at the same time. So
the benefit or the assumption that we're acting under that I haven't verified, but I'm pretty sure is the case, is that when two components are re-rendering due to a context change, the one higher in the tree gets re-rendered first, and that would be a thing to check on. It probably doesn't matter anyway, since you're going to be returning null. So it probably isn't going to make any substantial difference, but that's an assumption that I'm making that would be interesting to investigate.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Anyone else in the Zoom call? I noticed we have some chat in the Zoom. Yeah, Navdeep, thank you for the question. Make sure that we don't use the Zoom chat for questions. We use Discord. That way we keep things in flow. But I can answer your question here. No problem. So the question is, React has synthetic events. What will we do if we need to fire an event which is not available in a synthetic event? So like you're dispatching a manual event yourself. Is that the question?
Oh, yes, Ken. There's one of the question which the member from my club raised, so I just raised the question to you.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what their use case is? Like why they're dispatching a manual event?
Yeah. He mentioned there's some of the events, synthetic events, which are not available in the React. So basically, if some of the event is not available in that, how we can dispatch that event?
Right. I understand the question. My follow-up question is, in what situation would somebody want to dispatch an event or this specific person? Why do they want to dispatch an event that's not supported by the synthetic events? And in fact, I've never dispatched a synthetic event either. So in what situation do they want to dispatch an event manually?
Okay.
Do you
Not
know?
sure, but
Or did they
yeah, he just mentioned that some of the event are not available in the React. He didn't mention which one. So you can tell me that
Yeah,
what was
so
yeah.
so the only situation that I know of where you'd want to dispatch an event like a DOM based event that isn't supported in React directly is for web components, because you can have custom components that dispatch custom events. And I've never worked with web components in React to any degree of what's the word I'm looking for? Understanding, I guess, or like anything substantial. So I can't really speak to that too much, but I do know that it's a pain to integrate React and web components, which is maybe one of the reasons why I just don't. But yeah, um, so the way that we manage events with React is you have a like you're rendering a DOM node and you say on click, and then you have a handler for that. And so my guess is the question is, well, what if I have a custom event that I'm listening for, like on whatever, that's not supported as one of those events that React is going to handle? And for that, you would use an effect. You'd say React use effects, and then you'd get the ref to the DOM node, and you'd attach an event listener. You'd return a cleanup function that removes that event listener. It'd list all of your dependencies, and that's how you do that. It's like 3 lines of code, and that's how I would approach that. But like I said, I've been building React applications for years. I've never needed to do that. So if they don't have like an actual thing where they're actually trying to do this, then I would just say don't worry about it, because it's unlikely that you'll need to do that.
All right, cool, Ken. Thanks for reply.
Yeah, thanks for asking that for your club member. That was nice of you. Anyone else in the Zoom call who has questions?
Hey, Ken.
Hi there, Karthik.
Yeah, hi. So this is my first time on this office live. So I just wanted to know, I think the previous person mentioned, Navdeep mentioned about the clubs. Do you know if there's one that's happening here in the UK, or how do you start it? I just saw one message, but what is required to start a club? I don't have any experience of. I'm started with React. I'm started with JavaScript as well. So I don't know if I can start a club.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're asking. So you can find the clubs stuff right here in Discord. You'll find open clubs right here, and it looks like we don't have any open clubs right now. you'll notice you can't chat in here. This is just for the bot. And so when you create a club using the bot commands, then it will add a comment here to say, hey, there's an open club right here. So anytime there's an open club, you'll find it in this channel. And when you do create a club, you'll get access to this club captain. So you probably won't see that either. And then if you want to talk about clubs or ask questions or anything like that, you can discuss clubs here. And then if you have ideas for clubs, then you can do that here. Those two channels probably should just be one. But yeah, so if you want to learn about clubs, then you can go to kentcdodds.com/clubs. And let me put that in an accessible spot for you in our office hours here. And this will give you the rundown of how, like what clubs are all about and how you can create a club. We've got a hopefully relatively straightforward process for doing this. We've had I think, what was it, like 30 clubs have been created or something. So people are able to do it. But if you need any help or struggle with anything as you're going through this, then you can go to that clubs discussion channel. But yeah, to answer your basic question, yes, absolutely, you can start a club. And you don't have to know anything about the topic that you're trying to learn. It has nothing to do with like an expert leading a club and helping people learn. That's not what it's for. The role of the club captain is just to facilitate getting the club organized and put together, and making sure that the meetings happen. That's really all that you need to do. So it has nothing to do with the knowledge of the material. And my little secret about being a club captain is you learn way more than any of your club members. So if you want to really learn this stuff, then you'll want to be the club captain, because it's a great way to learn.
Exactly.
Thank you, Kent.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Anyone else here in Zoom before I jump over to Discord history? Okay, then we'll go to Discord history. So Andres, hopefully I'm saying your name right, but asked about use async and React query. So for those who are unfamiliar, in Epic React, we build this hook called use async as like both a way to learn how to build hooks like use async and also like to actually use it because it's quite useful. I honestly should probably open source it, but I don't know. It's not that big of a hook, but it is right here. And it's pretty cool. I kind of like it. But the question is, can we just get away with not using use async and just replace it entirely by React query? And then Nemo like it gives this suggestion. This actually won't quite work because this is going to trigger Bootstrap app data getting called over and over again. So you wouldn't want to include that those parentheses there. But yeah, the reason or situations where I would use async instead of React query is when I don't want to turn the knobs all the way down on React query for, hey, like don't run this. I want, or like don't rerun it. Don't add it to the cache. Don't like all of those things. So there are several situations where I would like where I don't want it to be to trigger a rerun of this particular function, even if it's technically stale or something. In particular, the user authentication state, I'm not super into having React Query manage that for me. And in fact, if I were to build a new application today, I might actually look at the relatively new use auth hook by, I can't ever say his name right, Swizik. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, but yeah, so you might look at this one for that sort of authentication and stuff. But that's not the only reason that I use this use async hook. I actually do use it in the rating component here. Oh, no, it's not this one. It's the status buttons. So here in the status buttons, you notice that we're using React Query here. These are custom hooks that use React Query under the hood. So we get our mutate and mutate for removing and adding, like creation, deletion. And we pass those on to onClicks for these tooltip buttons. So let me just make sure that this makes sense for people. So it's this, these buttons right here. So I click on that and I can mark it as read. I click on it again, mark it as unread. I can remove it. So that's deleting it. So that's what we're talking about here with these status buttons. So right here, I'm handling that mutation as like directly through React Query. But then in the tooltip button component that all of these are implementing, I'm actually also using use async to manage the is loading state for the spinner. So whether the spinner shows up or not, and whether we show up an error. Now, the way that works is when you click on this, I can say run, I call run and I pass it the promise that comes back from onClick. So onClick is going to get called. We call mutate and we call handle remove click or handle add click. This is going to return a promise. And then my use async state is just going to tell me, it basically just tells me the state of that promise, whatever promise I'm passing to run. And so this just makes it really easy for me to abstract away React Query from this tooltip button. So it can just say, hey, I'm going to call this function. You return me a promise. I don't care where that promise came from, how it came to be or whatever. I'm just going to give you some state for the state of that promise. If I wanted to do this without use async, then what I would have to do is get that state from each one of these hooks and pass it along to the tooltip button, which would not be as awesome, I don't think. So I see some room for use async, which is basically just a mechanism for managing the state of or knowing the state of a promise. And the fact that this promise is also being used by React Query to manage or to know what the state of the promise is irrelevant. These both just give me the benefit of knowing the state of that promise. So yeah, even with React Query, I use async in a handful of places, and I find it to be quite useful. So that is that. Feel free to use async. And if anybody wants to open source it, I guess you can. I probably won't. Okay. So Stephen and I had a little chat about why Remix is so awesome. Well, no, not Remix specifically. He's doing Next. Pretty much why server-side generation or static site generation is silly. And we should stop doing that for most use cases. But yeah, I think we got through that. Yeah, so kind of answered that question. Yep. Okay, let me take a look at this. And by the way, if anybody in the Zoom call has like a follow-up question or anything like that, feel free to interrupt me as we go. I'm happy to. I defer to the people who are actually present at office hours. So. Huh. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen this box run, but Buxton. Hope I'm saying that right. But I can visualize what you're talking about. With React Router version 6, I don't think the switch component even exists. They changed the way that the matching algorithm works, so you don't need a switch component, which is quite nice. So yeah, and actually, with React Router version 6, I think there are 2 ways to do routing. Where with one of them, you can actually do configuration-based routing, which is kind of what these people are trying to do. They're trying to just say, here's a config object, and let's just render out the React elements that the React Router API provides me. But I'm pretty sure React Router version 6 has a config API, which is kind of interesting. And that's actually, I believe, I can't remember if one feeds into the other or not, but Yeah, I don't really see any. The biggest disadvantage that I see to this is that you're building your own API on top of what is already a pretty simple API, and most likely the reason that they're doing this is because they see like this list of routes as a bunch of repetition that they want to avoid. But repetition isn't always a bad thing. Often it's a great thing. There has to be a reason to avoid the repetition. And actually, in Epic React, there's one lesson where we do a tic-tac-toe game, where you have like you're rendering a bunch of boxes or squares. Yeah, you render a bunch of squares, and there's a lot of repetition there. And like I said, repetition isn't necessarily a bad thing, but in that lesson, I show you that it's easy to make a typo because you have to keep two pieces of code in sync for things to work properly. And so for that reason, we build a small function abstraction that creates these elements for us, so we don't have that particular issue. But that's not normally the reason that people are going to make their mini abstractions to avoid repetition. Mostly it's just because they see like, oh, there's the same stuff here and here, I must dry it up or whatever, which I think is a wrong thought process. So I'm guessing, I'm guessing that's the reason that they're doing this. And if that is the reason, then I would recommend against doing that, because you end up saying, oh, well, we need this extra prop, and so I'm going to change my abstraction so it can support that extra prop. Well, like, you're just making things more complicated for no good reason. So anyway, hopefully that sort of helps with the limited visibility I had into what we're talking about. Okay, Oscar's asking, once I asked about TypeScript, saw a tweet about you saying desire to create material with React and TypeScript. Is it applying to the latest course? Yeah, so my TypeScript plans are, I actually haven't written it down yet, but I'm doing my New Year's resolution, or my year's theme is planning. So I've got this notebook where I write down the things that I'm going to do. I'm going to write it down now because I was thinking about it earlier. And that is to type scriptify a workshop. I don't know which one I'm going to do yet, which one I'm going to start with, but I'm going to start like making a branch or maybe a fork of my repos or something to explore turning them over to TypeScript, because I think that is a good idea. So, and eventually I'll write a blog post like TypeScript you need to know for React, or like the beginner TypeScript stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty much going all in on TypeScript. As far as like what does it apply to, eventually it'll be everything. But it takes a really, really long time to re-record videos. And to be frank, it's also not very exciting. Once I've done it once, I'm like, I don't want to re-record this again. But I have re-recorded videos before, and I plan on doing it eventually. So you can look forward to lots of TypeScript stuff from me. I'm not sure where I'm going to start. Part of me wants to do a standalone TypeScript thing, like that's just like, here's the fundamentals of TypeScript, maybe even make it free or something like that. So I'm still in the planning stages of where that's going to be, but eventually testingjavascript.com will be overhauled completely, and it will be like Epic React, where every module is its own workshop that has exercises and everything. Right now, only one of the modules is that way, and the rest of them are kind of egghead style courses where you just watch videos. So I'm going to revamp all of testing JavaScript, and when that happens, it's also all going to be in TypeScript, most likely. These are plans, not promises, so keep that in mind. And then Epic React will also eventually be converted to TypeScript. That's also a plan. And then, yeah, and then I'll probably, I think that I'm going to have a standalone TypeScript thing that's just like, hey, you've never used TypeScript before? Well, here, let me get you started on TypeScript, which would be like a really good thing for people to take who want to take one of my other courses but don't have any experience with TypeScript. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So what would be a good resource to look for on using TypeScript? Well, I haven't created any yet, so I can't give you recommendations from myself. And I don't use the typical resources that most people seem to like. My mechanism for learning stuff is to bang my head against the wall until I figure it out. And then I turn that into a course so you don't have to do that. So yeah, I don't have any recommendations. Sorry. But there are probably people here in the community who do have recommendations. Yeah, because I know that there are plenty of TypeScript courses out there already. Okay. Just a reminder, anybody here in the Zoom, you can interrupt me at any time and we can talk about a question that you have. I'm just going to go through the Discord in case, or while I'm waiting for you all to say something. Matja is asking, we're in the process of transitioning from a monorepo from Dojo Toolkit to React. That's exciting. Any advice? Yeah, so every time somebody asks me a question like this, I always point them to this, let's see, Jameis Charles, Migrating to React talk that he's given a couple of times. It's been a couple of years now, but still solid. We migrated on the PayPal team, cross-border, or no, yeah, peer-to-peer transactions team. We migrated from Backbone to React, but lots of these things are going to apply regardless of what you're transitioning from. So hopefully that helps. I should have replied here. We'll just do this. There you go. Okay. So good luck. That is fun to migrate. Not really, but sort of. So kind of. It's fun to work in the new code. All right, Emmer is asking my opinion on TDD, mandatory or optional? Definitely optional. I would never say TDD is mandatory. I do have a blog post about my feelings on TDD when I follow TDD. And actually, here, let's see, where'd that go? Also, this is where I went too far with TDD once. So you can read through those. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that it's mandatory, but definitely useful in some situations. And yeah, I think that pretty much should answer that. Share my notebook. Oh yeah, so this notebook, it's literally, it's nothing. It's just like a lined notebook. It's something I can keep in my pocket. I'll tell you the brand. Maybe I'll give you an affiliate Amazon link and make millions of dollars. No, just kidding. I got it on from Walmart. It's just called a memo book, distributed by Walmart. Yep, 80 sheets. And every day I just flip it open to the first page. I write things down the night before. And so I'll just write it down. If I think of something, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that tomorrow. Then I'll just go to the next page and I'll write it down for the next page. Then at the end of the day, I rip it. I just review my day. And so far I've gotten almost everything crossed out every day, which has been really, it's actually kind of nice to look at the end of your day and you're like, oh, I'm all done. I did stuff today. That's awesome. So, and I'll write like small things down too. Like office hours is on here. I have a 3-minute podcast that I'm doing every day, which I guess I should mention here. Take a look at this 3 mins. I don't think a lot of people know about this podcast. Yeah, every day I have a 3-minute podcast. Yeah, actually, this might perk somebody's ears. Why remix means I'm not excited about React server components. I do it on my phone, and so it gets me an automatic transcript. So you've got a transcript there too, which is like not great, but it's pretty good. So yeah, you can take a look at that. But yeah, I put like my 3 minutes on there, and I like laundry, different stuff like that I put on there. Then I just cross it out, I rip it out, and then right before I go to bed, I just make sure to write down all the things that I want to get done the next day. And then every week I'll go through my week calendar with my wife, and we'll just talk about the things we need to get done. We'll add things to the calendar or whatever we need to do, so that yeah, because when I'm writing down the things I want to do the next day, I'll check my calendar too to make sure that I've got that down too. And yeah, Kelvin, really quick question about whether I'm keeping this time for future office hours the rest of the year. I think so. I'm not 100% positive because it is a Saturday. And I'm thinking about making Friday a family day and then working on Saturdays. This morning I woke up and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work today. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If it does change, it will probably go back to Friday, which is what I had this originally scheduled at. So you'll just want to keep up. I'll mention it in the announcements. Yeah, so you can maybe set your notifications settings on the announcements to go all messages or something. I don't post in here very often. Okay, cool. Let's see. Back up here. Yeah, cool. Yeah, people seem to really want a TypeScript course from me. So I will, and I like TypeScript a lot. So yeah, that's coming. How do I rate You Don't Know JS? I've read a couple of pages of that book and it seems reasonably laid out, and I thought, like, I mean, Kyle Simpson is very knowledgeable and has a unique style of teaching that I think is a good one. So I don't know if I can rate it necessarily, but I think it is good. So you could give that a look if you want to be reminded how much you don't know JS or whatever. But yeah, and it's free reading online, which I think is very cool. So, okay, that is everything that I've got in Discord. And anybody on Zoom have a question? And people, feel free. I'll hang out here for a little bit in case anybody else has questions in Discord. But otherwise, I'll just take off.
I have
Hello.
one last question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Karthik, you, or Bhavin, is that how you say your name? Why don't you go first?
Yeah. Hi, Ken. In actually, we are planning to build up a component library for our organization. So we thought of two options which were there. One was Storybook and one was bit.dev to host your components, right? So out of which, have you tried anything, and do you have any personal opinions on which should we prefer for a better visibility of the components that we have?
Yeah, so you kind of cut out right when you said the critical pieces. So you said there are two options, and what were those options?
It was Storybook by Airbnb, which I think, and there was one bit.dev where you can, kind of host your components version one by one.
Yeah, could you add links to the Discord of what you're talking about?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I heard Storybook, and you mentioned that's by Airbnb. It's actually not by Airbnb. It originally came from, oh, what was that company called? I think that, yeah, I can't remember what, but it's bounced around in ownership. Now it's 100%
Okay.
open source. But yeah, when I was at PayPal, I worked on, that was the last thing that I worked on. So I did a lot of
Okay.
tooling stuff, and then I transitioned right toward the end of my time there. I transitioned to full-time working on our component library, and I used Storybook for that, and it was great. Really happy with it.
Okay.
And I've used Storybook. I've been using Storybook for years, and it is just gotten better. So what was the other option that you mentioned?
Yeah, I'll just post it on the Office Hours channel. Maybe you can
Oh,
have a
there
look
it
at
is.
it. So
Bit.do.
Yeah.
Have I heard of this? I think I may have heard of this. Yeah. Somebody pointed this out to me a while ago, and yeah, I've never used it before, so I can't really speak
Okay.
to it. But
Sure.
I mean, somebody else brought it up, so there's that for you. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Cool.
Sorry, I can't really be too helpful. So all I can say is Storybook is great. I don't know about this one.
Sure. No, not a problem. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck.
Maybe we'll have a look at both of them. Thank you.
Yeah. And Karthik?
Yeah, I can. So my question was, so we have in our companies, we have a project. We started up with React, and I noticed that most of the tests. I recently joined that company as well, so they've written a lot of tests with Enzyme, just tests with Enzyme. So I started. They have this component called AG Grid as well. So AG Grid React. So uh, I saw some of your blog posts and I was interested. I purchased this React course and also the testing JavaScript course. I wanted to move into testing with the React testing library. So I attempted some started testing it with end to end or let's say UI testing.
Hey, Karthik, you're cutting out the last 10 seconds or so. You said you wanted.
sorry.
There you go. I think you're better now. You were just saying that you wanted to start using React testing testing library.
Yes, that's right. Sorry. So the React testing library, but then I got stuck with the AG Grid when I was starting to test AG.
No, Karthik, sorry, you're cutting out again. So all that I heard was that you got hung up on AG Grid.
I don't know. I'll speak out again. Otherwise, I'll just post it in the chat and then so we can ask the question. You can answer it later, in case it breaks up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got stuck up with a lot of errors on AG Grid. I can bring them on next time when you come online. And also there were other issues trying to test select a normal. So there was React select and there was a normal HTML select. In our organization we don't use. There is a experience team, they call it. So they.
Sorry, Karthik, we just lost you again. The last thing I heard was there's an experience team. Yeah, sorry. I can speak to a couple of the things that you said, and then if you want to write out the rest, any other follow-up questions, why don't you do that? So I have heard of people struggling to test AG Grid, and there are a couple of, I've never used AG Grid myself, but I do know that it's a very complicated piece of software. I mean, it's paid even. So yeah, I can't really speak to AG Grid specifically of what you can do. I'll just mention as an aside, if I were to build a table, I would actually use React Table. I think that the API and just the focus on React there is a positive thing. But yeah, so as far as like testing it, if you're really struggling with it, there are kind of two approaches you can take. You can take one approach that says, well, I'm going to just rely on AG Grid actually being correct, and I'll mock out AG Grid and just make sure I'm calling it with the right props. So that's one approach. The other approach is tested in Cypress, because I'm guessing that some of the problems that you're having with AG Grid are because Jest with JS DOM doesn't support layout. And that might be part of the reason why it's so hard to test with AG Grid. So if you test with Cypress, then you're running in a real browser. So then on the select stuff, if a component is not accessible, it's very difficult to test with React testing library. And so that would be the first thing to double check is if you're struggling to test something with React testing library, it's possible that component's not accessible. If it's a regular select shouldn't be a problem, but if it's a select that is custom made and it's doing some measuring and stuff like that, that also is not going to be supported in JS DOM because it doesn't support layout. And so you might test that with Cypress as well. If you have any other like follow-up questions or anything, you can feel free to mention those in the Discord, and we can hopefully have better luck next time.
Yeah, thank you, Kent. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck.
Hey, hi, Ken.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So just a follow-up question on the previous question that you said. If our React application is not much accessible. It's a bit tricky to test it out with React testing library. But actually, we were facing this issue as well. But we found that if we test out the React testing library with the test IDs, it is easy to test it out with the other automation frameworks like Test Cafe as well, because
Hmm.
for integration tests and things like that. So where to keep our balance too? Because our company is somewhat like a B2B company, and we are not like open to people and things like that. So the part of accessibility plays not a major role in our product or something like that, right? So do you still think should we go ahead with React testing library then?
So I would push back on the idea that accessibility isn't important because you're B2B. There, I think accessibility is important, just period, regardless of anything. But yeah, like you can use test IDs for everything and easily test with testing library and then like you said with Test Cafe. One thing to keep in mind is test IDs as great as they are, they're still not um, they're not as good as they could be in making you confident that your application is working well. For one, they're not going to help you know that your application's accessible. Now, if you don't care about accessibility, then you should. but
Definitely.
one thing that I'd mention is testing library is not just for React. It's for anywhere you can find a DOM, and even some places you can't find a DOM. And so we actually do have a Test Cafe implementation of testing library. And so if you like using React testing library and you're using Test Cafe, then you can use testing library / Test Cafe and get all of the same queries that you're used to with React testing library in Test Cafe, which is nice. Even if you're just using test IDs, this will give you that as well, which I think it can be really quite useful. So that would be something to look at as well. We have one for like even Puppeteer and even Nightwatch, Cypress, like all the things, all the different frameworks. So
Okay.
it'd be something to look at.
Sure, thanks a lot, Ken. And I'll go back to my colleagues and say that Ken said that accessibility is important. So they
Good.
would definitely
Yes.
be convinced on that.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Make them use the app blindfolded or like tie one hand behind their back or they'll find that like if one of your customers needs to use it with like a broken wrist or something, like it's not
Yeah,
just for people who are deaf or blind or whatever. Like there are temporary accessibility needs as well. So
definitely.
Some people don't like
That
to
will
use the
help a
mouse
lot.
more. Actually, they want to use just the tab on their keyboard. They want to use more of the keyboard.
yeah, exactly. Making an application
Yeah,
accessible makes it better for everybody for sure. So
definitely.
cool.
Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's take a look. We've got a couple more questions that have come in. Oh yeah, I have used and recommend the cheat sheets, except I've never seen it on. Yeah, I only ever saw it on GitHub, so this is cool. They've got an official site now. Yeah, that's nice. And there's an official Discord. My goodness. Heck yes, I'm joining this thing. Yes, I'll join it. Oh, this is the official TypeScript community. Nice. Cool. I'll take a look at this later. Fun. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yes, you can feel free to use my website source code for your own portfolio. I mean, I think that it probably be better if you make some changes to it at least. Don't just like copy it wholesale. Yeah, like I borrowed a lot of this from like Jason Lengsdorf and Joel Hooks. Vojta Holik helped a lot with this. And yeah, you can feel free to take this totally if you want. I'm moving away from Gatsby completely. That's one of the next big things that I'm working on. Just kind of waiting for Remix to get a new version released because they have new stuff coming that I'm waiting for. But yeah, so feel free to borrow this if you want. It is open source under MIT. That's the license. So yeah, as long as you're good about that. Okay. Yeah, the process of asking questions is, if you're in Zoom, you can interrupt me at any time, provided I'm not like answering somebody else's Zoom question. Yeah, and I'll answer questions of people who are actually in the Zoom call first. If not, then just put it in Discord and I will answer as I scroll down to it. So I missed this one. Yeah, sorry about this, Kelvin. I missed that. Yeah, so, I mean, if everything's already in Redex, then you're probably feeling all the pains of putting everything in Redex. So what I would suggest is start to co-locate stuff. I've got a blog post about state and co-locate state. So here, let's respond to this and that. And actually, this one is probably useful too. Co-location. So give those a read through. That should hopefully be helpful. Is Redex required? I don't think so. It really shouldn't be. There are probably still an increasing number of projects, like new projects using Redex. It's still very popular, but you know, every project that I've worked on that used Redex, I wasn't happy with Redex. Not because of Redex, but because of what people do with Redex, which is just put everything into the global store because that's where we do state. I hated that, and so yeah, I would not. I would not recommend doing that. But if you want to get a job and the company that you want to get a job at is using Redex, then yeah, you probably should learn Redex. And Arpan was responding about the storybook thing. Yes, it was. Yeah, so it was before Arun Noda was at Zeit is when he created Storybook, and I just can't remember the name of the company. He had a company, and then I think he sold it to Zeit, or like he sunset it and then he started working for Zeit. I can't remember the history there. Okay. And sorry, now I understand why you were asking about the queue, because I skipped your question. So sorry about that. What do you think about mocking all dependencies when I want to write a unit test? Is it a good approach to mock all the component dependencies? Yeah, okay, so this is a pretty common question. If I'm not mocking every dependency, then I'm writing an integration test. Sure, if that's how you want to think about it, then yeah. I mostly think about tests in from the lens of, is this test giving me confidence? And less from the lens of, is this test a unit or an integration test? I really don't care about the distinction. It doesn't make any difference to me. I'm thinking about how much confidence am I getting from this test? Like, does this test tell me that my application is working? And so I typically find that mocking, tests that use a lot of mocking don't give me a lot of confidence. And so I focus more of my time on integration tests. And I wrote about this a long time ago now. And you can read about that there in my write test, not too many, mostly integration, which is borrowed from the founder of Zeit, now Vercel, Guillermo Rauch. So yeah, that's quoting him. Okay, cool. So it looks like we've dried up the Discord. Any other questions before I take off? We've got 5 minutes left, so I'm happy to hang out for the next 5 minutes. Just waiting on somebody typing here. As they are typing up potentially a question, I'm just going to close things up. So that's Office Hours. It was fun. Thanks for hanging out. Welcome to 2021. Despite the pandemic still being a problem and my country being aflame with people trying to start a civil war or something, I am still optimistic about this year. And I think that things are gonna get a lot better than they were last year. And there are lots of really great people doing really great things. And I hope that you're one of them. And I will try to be one too. So have an awesome year. And it's great. Let me just really quickly. Yeah. So reasons moving from Gatsby to Remix. I don't have a whole lot of time right now to answer this question. And I'm still not quite at the point where I can explain my feelings on the subject very clearly. And so I'm not going to try. But this is a really great video that explains a lot of the reasons why server-side or static site generation is very problematic. And yes, Derek, that is where that is inspired from. Yep. Okay, cool. That was fun. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful time. I will see you next week, probably on a Saturday. But yeah, if you want to be made known for certain, then just set your notification settings on announcements to all messages. But yeah, I will let you know if things change. So thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you around on Discord.
Thank you, guys. Happy New Year.